chilly November morning of 1985, a 27-year-old mother was walking her 6-year-old daughter to the bus stop. The mother's ex-boyfriend drove by, got out of the car, and started yelling at her over a breakup that had happened a couple of days ago. It escalated and escalated until he slapped her, grabbed her purse, and started beating her with it. The mother yelled to her daughter to run as quickly as she could to her babysitter's house. After a couple hours, the babysitter drove to the bus stop, picked up the mother and her daughter, and drove them to the police station. There, the mother filed a report, and the man was arrested. But unfortunately, like many flaws in our system, if you're able to bail yourself out, you can't, and he did. The mother and daughter had to wait 3 months for the trial. They endured threatening phone calls and voicemails. But luckily, neither one of them was harmed, and the man was convicted. I know this case is real because the mother in the story is my mother, and her daughter is my older sister. Cases of domestic violence like these occur more often than many of us think, some of them more serious than this one, leading to death. According to UMBC's Relationship Violence Awareness and Prevention page, domestic violence is the #1 cause of injury to women between ages 15 and 44 in the United States. It causes more injuries than car accidents, muggings, and rapes combined. Of the women murdered each year, 30% of them are killed by their current or former boyfriend or husband. Tonight I will convince you that domestic violence is a problem. It causes severe and sometimes long-lasting effects. It is a problem on this campus and on many college campuses, and it continues to be a problem because many victims find it hard to get out of their relationships, and many witnesses find it hard to report. Domestic violence can come in many forms. It's not only physical. It can be emotional, sexual, verbal, and even economical. It's used in an abusive relationship by one partner in order to gain power and control over the other. All forms can be very detrimental to the people involved and can cause effects such as sleeping problems, depression, anxiety attacks, poor relationships with others, the inability to work, diminished mental and physical health, according to the American Academy of Experts in Traumatic Stress. Many of these effects happened to my mother and sister. Many of us, we tend to only think of physical abuse, and while that is very common, verbal abuse is just as common. Name-calling, threats, blaming, yelling, putting down others are examples of verbal abuse. Many of these we see on our campus, while we're walking to class, when we're in D Hall, and we don't think anything of it. In the Collegian Central article, Domestic Violence, a Silent Crime on College Campuses, it stated that on college campuses, many domestic violence cases that officials see are more non-physical, like stalking, verbal abuse, or electronic abuse. For students on campuses, observing signs of domestic violence is difficult because oftentimes they are unnoticeable. And I definitely agree. I've seen abuse verbal abuse and electronic abuse on Facebook, Twitter, and I'm sure many of us have. And either, we don't really recognize it, or we just don't do anything about it. In a college dating, violence, and abuse poll from loveisrespect.org, 1 in 3 college women are reported being in an abusive relationship. Now, if you look at UMBC's campus, there's about 6,000 women on campus out of the 13,000 total, and that means about 2,000 of them have been or will be in an abusive relationship. Still looking at UMBC, we know that domestic violence occurs because we see posters of it in our dorms, and we have organizations like the Green Dot that are trying to prevent it. And even though we have these resources, many of us don't use them, which is the case of one of my roommates. She used to go to D Hall, and she told me recently when I told her I was doing this speech that she used to see this couple, and many times they would just sit there like other couples, eating, enjoying lunch, but on several occasions he'd be yelling at her, saying rude remarks, and even one time he grabbed her, twisted her arm just because she wouldn't look at him while he was talking to her. I asked her why she didn't report it, and she said that she was scared that if she did, something might further happen to the girl. This leads me to my last point, which is that majority of the victims and witnesses don't report these cases because of fear that something further will happen. According to the same poll by loveisrespect.org, 78% of college students say they think it is important to intervene when you see a friend or someone being abused, but 58% of them don't know what to do. 27% of those who have a college friend that they know have experienced at least one case of violence in their relationship did not do anything to help their friend. Now looking at the victims, most women stay in their abusive relationships because their fear of their partner, they are ashamed of letting other people know that they've been abused, they believe no one will help them, or they just don't know where or how to get help. And these reasons are very understandable because in some cases leaving is more dangerous than staying. According to the domesticabuseshelter.org's article, it states that statistics show that out of the total domestic abuse homicides, 75% of the victims were killed either as they were trying to get out of the relationship or after the relationship had ended. This relates to my case with my mother, even though she didn't die, but she had ended the relationship, and that's when it was the first time she said that he had beat her, but he had previously been very verbally abusive. Although domestic violence continues to be a problem in the United States and on this campus, it is spread worldwide and it is a huge problem. Tonight I argue that domestic violence is a problem on college campuses, including UMBC, can have damaging and long-lasting effects, and that it will continue if people don't try to get help or witnesses don't say anything. So in conclusion, don't let it take seeing your friend, your relative, or even yourself in an abusive relationship. If you know that there's resources to prevent it or to get help, use them.